introduce our speaker, Dawn Rasmussen. Dawn, it's great to see you again. I think that we've done this a couple times. Dawn is a certified resume writer, is the president of Portland, Oregon-based Pathfinder Writer and Career Services, and author of Forget Job Security, Build Your Marketability, which is the first ever book that provides a complete roadmap on how to manage your career. One thing that makes Dawn tick is a relentless and tireless desire to help everyone understand the importance of actively managing their career every minute of the day. I've had the opportunity to hear Dawn speak a couple times over the past few months, and I promise every time it's exciting and you will not be disappointed. So with that, I will turn things over to you, Dawn.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks again for being such a great sponsor. And I welcome everyone here. I know we've got a lot of stress going on, and some of us a little bit more than others right now. I'm probably gonna have to drink a lot of water because we got a lot of smoke here where I live due to all the big fires. So I think my voice was about 12 octave lower this morning when I woke up. So, but hopefully we'll get some rain here. So let's just sort of get into kind of LinkedIn and where we all are right now. And it is a pretty scary time for all of us in our industry. And, you know, I've been in this industry going on 20 years next year. And so, and all of us know that this is our industry. These are our peeps. These are our friends, our colleagues, our customers. It's all part of this one big family. And what's really unique about our industry, well, actually, there's two things. The first thing is that this is the one industry where what we do is all about meeting face to face. And the one thing we can't do is meet face to face. So it's kind of like we had our knees cut out from underneath us. But it's also a unique industry because we all take our work so personally. We love what we do. We pour our hearts, our energy, and everything into it. It's more than just doing a job. It's a commitment for all of us. We understand what it takes to be in the hospitality meetings industry and the whole care and the experience that we provide to our customers and our attendees and the whole thing. So when something like this happens with the pandemic and we're getting people getting furloughed or laid off, it really hits us really hard in the heart. And it's very depressing, I'll be honest. And so I do want to interject and give you some hope here before we go into some of the other stuff. But the main thing is that there's a lot of opportunity still out there. And we all know that this industry will return. They are saying 2023 kind of conservatively. It may come faster than that. But I want you to start thinking about if you're currently engaged in a job search. I'll try to deal with people that have their jobs and the people looking at a job search. A lot of things to try to cover today. But if you're looking in a job search, there are opportunities out there. People are still hiring. And obviously, the more you can manage and learn about the digital side of things, so like example of what's going on right this very moment, is a good thing. So, but for some of us, there's not that option. And so there are some other directions you can pivot. And going back to what I said earlier about all of us having this passion for what we do, you may need to step off this merry-go-round for a little bit until things recover. And that's okay. You're not giving up your entire career in this industry. You're just going to step off for a little bit and maybe get that kind of survival job kind of thing. But if you kind of change your mindset of feeling like this tremendous sense of loss, like I'm leaving the meetings industry, I'm going to go do something I'm not very excited about, but it's going to pay the bills, change your mindset. And I'm going to challenge you with that. Think about maybe that this is actually a stretch assignment instead of something you have to kind of grind through. So maybe if you could be mindful and purposeful in your thoughts, you might start thinking about how you might transform this stepping off the merry-go-round into an interim role as a stretch assignment where you can gain new skill sets. And it might be that, you've been kind of ticking along in your mind of like, oh, I've been really wanting to learn more about this, or I want to get some more skills in this other thing. And I know all of you, you're all type A personalities. You're so going gangbusters with everything that you do, and maybe you just haven't had the time to go pursue these opportunities, but now maybe there's a door opening you couldn't have anticipated, and this would be the time to go do this. So So think of it as a stretch assignment, and let's talk about pivot areas too, because that can also help you as well. So if you're on the planning side of things, you might want to start thinking about maybe operations as a good step off point, which is very transferable, as well as project management. Now, project management is actually underneath the operational umbrella. So operations covers a broader area versus projects. So just depending on where you are in your career, you might want to start thinking about how you might calibrate yourself effectively in that different direction. So operations, if you think about it, break it down, it's going to be about managing people, managing resources, managing finances, managing deadlines. Hello, meeting planners and exhibition planners, that's what you do. So that's an easy transferable thing. And then also project management, if you're kind of more at the junior level, that's also another way to kind of look at it. So really, you may need to back off some of your meetings industry specific language and focus more operationally on those types of terms. And if you're in sales on the other side, sales is sales is sales. So what's critical right now is to maybe, again, back off some of the meetings industry sales language and focus on your wins and really get into show me the money. Any employer right now is looking, they're shopping around, they're looking for the best deal out there for the best person who can create the best results. So I'm going to challenge you to start thinking about how have I contributed? How have I moved the needle forward? How have I made a difference? How have I solved problems? How have I made it better? And the more you can think about those types of things from a sales standpoint, you're going to be showing that you are a profit center. And actually meeting and exhibition planners, you can also think about that too, that the more you can show that you're a profit center, not a cost center, that's going to up your candidacy up on the pile, the interview pile. So it's all about showing value, and that's what a LinkedIn profile will do. And also, you know, if we flip it over to those of you who are not looking for work, but you just want to up your game, you know, showing value is going to attract partners. It's going to attract clients. It's going to attract other colleagues that maybe you might want to work with internally. So kind of thinking of it in that mindset of how can I really produce value is going to be critical. So I've talked a little bit about some different job career opportunities, thinking about a stretch assignment. And now I'm going to put in the chat, I just put a little link in here too. The Young Presidents Organization did a survey of all of their members, and they did basically, it's like over 1,000 different C-suite executives that they surveyed. And this provides a lot of data on where they see where the opportunities are going to happen and also where the contraction is. Guess where they found the contraction? Our industry. Big surprise there, right? But to put it in these types of terms, you need to follow the money. And so if you look at this survey and kind of see what these executives are identifying as growth areas, maybe there's an operational role in that particular industry sector that is growing. And so it's kind of keeping mindful of where those opportunities may be generating or growing or evolving. And so the more you can stay on top of that, it will help you find those opportunities and really start mastering your networking. And that kind of flows right into the LinkedIn profile part. So one thing I want to do is let's do a break. Can we do a breakout? Are you there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, let's do a breakout because I want everybody to have an opportunity. I have one question and then you're going to break them out, right? So yep. The question would be, if you want to write it down, is how would you pivot your skills in a new direction? What opportunities do you see? So again, how would you pivot your skills in a new direction if you have to, and what opportunities do you see? So if you want to break everybody out and they can have a 5-minute huddle here and then come back.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to break you out. Remember, you are muted right now. So when you get in your breakout room, you'll need to unmute. When we're coming back in, we'll probably mute, please, just because there's so many people at once. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll send you into your breakout rooms and we'll call you back in a little bit.
Okay, well, hopefully you guys had some productive discussions and maybe you can have some chats afterwards. I want to keep our content moving along here. So I'm going to jump right into share screen because after all, you wanted to learn about LinkedIn and not stare at my ugly mug. So let's go on to LinkedIn, and I am sharing my screen right now. And so what I want to do with LinkedIn, and I'm using my profile because it's in edit mode, okay? And just let's kind of talk about the different pieces of LinkedIn, and this is going to be applicable whether you're looking for a job or I'm trying to get, there we go. I'm trying to minimize the thumbnail here so I can see. So you know, you do want to make sure that you're going to be able to use this whether you're in job search mode or if you're looking for opportunities. I mean, obviously, if you're in sales or if you're looking for partners or whatever it is that you're doing, LinkedIn is a great tool, but you have to know how to work it in order to get the highest yield out of it. So this is where we get a little crazy and fasten your seatbelts here. So the first thing on your LinkedIn profiles, you want to look at, I just clicked on that one corner that talks about your custom URL. LinkedIn does give you a URL that's a default setting and oftentimes has a lot of different numbers and maybe pieces of your name and that kind of thing. You can include your name if you're one of those unfortunate people that has a very common name and it's not already taken. You're going to have to get a little more creative as far as your LinkedIn profile customized URL. But I do want to caution you, please do not use what year you graduated, how old you are, or what year you're born, okay? You want to try to make sure that age is never going to be in play here. So if you have to come up with some random numbers, that's great. But just don't include anything that might tip your hand as far as how old you are. So just keep that in mind. And if you're going to get into starting to make changes on your LinkedIn, what I like to do is to kind of use the term of you're going to take your profile down for system maintenance, like having a website and you have a major issue. Not that you have a major issue on your profile, but you don't want to be broadcasting every little thing that you do to tinker with your profile. So you can turn off the profile's public visibility, and you can also turn off the broadcast notifications, which are kind of the default settings. So you want to make sure no one's looking at your profile while you're tinkering with it in case you make a mistake or you want to change things up, it doesn't look right. And you also want to make sure you turn off the profile broadcast notifications, because especially if you are in a job and you're connected to people, every time you change something, someone's going to get a notification. Oh, Dawn changed this, Dawn changed that, Dawn changed that. So the problem is that a whole burst of activities is usually indicative of impending job search. So you don't want to tip your hand there. And plus it's annoying to keep getting notifications on the receiving end. So take it down, do your work, and then put it back up. So that's a good best practice for LinkedIn. So now I'm going to go back to the page here. And I'm using mine because I'm showing the edit mode. Everybody can do this on your own as well. So edit mode is you really want to make sure that you're trying to get as much information in your profile as possible and make this robust. So looking at your profile picture, I obviously have a piece from my website. If you're an exhibition manager, maybe you might want to put a picture of a busy show floor or someone talking in front of a group of people, or maybe a booth or something like that. Maybe if you're in your booth, if you have a company that's in there. Same thing with sales. Maybe you're showing two people interacting that looks like a sales exchange, something like that. It just is an illustration of what you do. And it could also be more generic. So just be careful you're not using somebody's proprietary image. There's plenty of free image libraries out on the internet. So if you are switching over to operations or something like that, maybe you just have something that looks like gears clicking. And so it just shows, the operations, all the gears fit together. That might be more of a generic representation of what you do. Then you also want to have in your picture actual photo of you. That's going to be important. A lot of people have the blank photo square or circle, and that's not good. We are in social media, so it's therefore very important to have social connection and visual representations of people. So you want to make sure your photo is professional. You want to be looking at the camera and smiling. Don't be like the CEO that I work with, who was obviously water skiing. He had his PFD on and he had actually cropped out his wife's head, but her hair was sort of flowing over his bare shoulder. Not cool, not professional. And by the way, LinkedIn is not like Facebook, okay? So you don't want to be posting your random thoughts out there or getting into political things unless it's absolutely critical to where you want to go. But this is your professional platform, but it is social. So you do need to infuse your profile with some character about you and personality. It could be a way to attract new clients or work with new sponsors, or it could be that you are looking for new employment. And so it's social media in a way that's going to communicate chemistry and connection and fit. And so you don't want to just copy and paste your resume. That's a big no-no, because it's a different language and a different format. And social media is where you get to speak directly to your audience and communicate with them. And you don't want to lose that opportunity. So use this as a way to tell your story. So let's keep moving through here, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So right here, I'm sorry, I'm trying to highlight this. So this is your branding statement, basically. Sorry, it's highlighting the stuff below, but you want to come up with a branding statement that's going to articulate what you do and how you help companies. It's kind of difficult because usually it was 120 characters. Now it's 220, I believe. So you do get a little bit more breathing room there, but you want to include something along the lines of what your target position is. So it might be operations director, operations manager, and then lead into how you solve a company's pain point. So if you kind of think about it, put the shoe on the other foot. How would you being an operations manager help the boss go to sleep better at night, knowing that you got things handled? So you got to think about that unique value proposition and how you help companies. So that's really critical to get that across. Please do not include looking for work. Do not include unemployed or looking for my next adventure. Now, with that caveat, there is a frame that you can get on LinkedIn that says open to work. And I get a lot of questions about that. It's kind of your call. I definitely don't want you to include it in your headline, which is what I have highlighted right now. You don't want to do that because that's a precious space for you to communicate what you are and what you do and how you help companies. So you don't want to consume that by saying unemployed, meeting or event or exhibition manager, okay? So you can use the open to work frame. It's kind of up to you. But it's good. It's kind of like a two-edged sword. So if you say that you're open to work, it's very clear that you're unemployed. So that could be a ding. Although I will tell you, I'm actually attending today and yesterday and tomorrow the National Resume Writers Association, and short stints. And one of the things I found out is short stints on your work history of unemployment are actually okay. It's if it's been multiple years that since you've been working, that's where we get into some challenges as far as employability. But you know, I think, and I will agree with this, the trends kind of started with actually way back in 9/11 when so many people lost jobs, and then we had the recession in 2008, 2009, and then obviously now with the pandemic, there are and have been extenuating circumstances that have caused companies to cut staff that are outside of your control. So it's not a reflection of your job performance. And I think employers and including recruiters are understanding that. So they're a little bit more sympathetic and understanding if there's a shorter term gap in your employment. But if it's several years, then that's something to be concerned about. So you might want to look into getting some volunteer work just to fill that gap. So when we talk about connections, I want to talk about this too. So connections are an interesting little animal. I originally was a closed networker. My thought was, gee, if you're not going to be in my network, if I don't know you, you're not going to be in my network. I want a high quality network, and I was closed. So it's like I only let people in that I knew personally. And then I got taken to task by my counterparts in the National Resume Writers Association. Everybody said, no, keep your doors open. And I have come around to the thought that if your doors are open, anything can fall in. And if your doors are shut, nothing can get in. So it has led to amazing opportunities. And I will tell you that if someone misbehaves, after you connect with them and they do something stupid, like, and as soon as they want to connect with you, then they want something, then that's bad, and you can kick them out, or they spam you, or whatever it is, poor marketing or poor sales approaches. So you can always kick them out. And, you know, for example, there was this young man, I love telling the story, a young man who was in England, and he wanted to connect, and he was in the career space. I'm like, okay, sure, why not? And then immediately after we connected, he sent me a separate email and said, I am walking I'm doing a walk from London, from China to London, and he wanted me to help sponsor him. And I thought, you know, everybody wants their own vacation paid for, buddy, get in line, you know? So it was just like, I did take the time and say, you should know better. You're in the career space. This is an abuse of your contact network. And, you know, you didn't even help anyone. You basically got in there and asked for something. So that's not something you want to do. So if you are going to request to connect with someone, and it's super important that you do not use that default setting on LinkedIn, because it's just lazy. What you're doing when you use the default, oh, I'd like to connect with you on your network, or I'd like to be in your network, that's basically being lazy, because you're not taking the time to personalize that message. And you're missing an opportunity, most importantly, is to actually build a meaningful connection. Tell me why you want to connect, you know, make it human, and then we can begin a conversation that becomes an ongoing conversation and connection. It grows. If it's a one-time hit, then I'm not going to remember you 10 days from now, let alone 5 years from now. So try to start a conversation, and that will build that meaningful relationship. And in terms of numbers of connections, usually we're looking at about 250. I don't want you to just go add notches in your belt for sure, though. You definitely want to make sure that these are meaningful people. They could be previous bosses, colleagues, customers, friends, other industry people you've met. Customers. So kind of think big as far as who you might want to connect with, and then take the time to personally connect. So, and are there any questions? I think I'm seeing the chat popping up. Are there any questions I should be answering right now? Hello?
No, we don't have any questions yet, but
Okay.
if you have some questions,
Okay.
actually one just came up.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, and I'm
Mhm.
entertaining questions while we're going along here. So
Okay. So lately, due to the current climate, there are many entrepreneur advisors trying to connect to obtain you as a client and advise on specific careers, such as insurance and overall. So that's a statement as much as anything else, but I think it's, I've seen it a lot. I'm sure you've seen it a lot. How do you deal with the number of people trying to help you through this trying time? Every insurance company and their grandmother comes out all of a sudden.
You know, when you get some of those, I would just say you have to evaluate everything and ask yourself, is this advancing my goals? Is it a stretch assignment? Is it, you know, there's so many factors. Is it really helpful to your financial goals, your career goals? And, you know, is it legitimate? There's a lot of that going on too. So I would just say exercise caution like you would anywhere else, and do your due diligence, research them on LinkedIn, research them on Google and any other website. And, you know, Glassdoor has a lot of information too, that can provide the insider tips you might need to know what's really going on at that company, and if this is legit, or if it's just, you know, you're going to be in a very unhappy place. So hopefully that answers your question, but you just need to be exercise extreme caution, but do your due diligence. And if it's legit, then you can explore it further. So
Don,
now,
we've got another interesting question here, which actually I've kind of wondered myself.
Okay.
Should your LinkedIn profile in the About section be written in first or third person?
It is first person. And I was just going into that. It's your summary / your About section. And so I do tell people that you should be writing in the first person, because this is social media. This is your opportunity to directly connect to your audience. So I encourage people to use first person. But another thing you want to do is to make it personal, because stories are what humans connect together on. And so if you can create this a compelling statement in this, you get 2,000 characters, and that's very short. But it's a way to tell your career story. So tell something that hooks them in. You know, maybe like I first got excited about meeting planning when I was in high school, and I organized the prom, and I realized, oh, I really like doing this. And for me, every time something came up through the next couple of years, I always volunteered. And then I realized, oh my goodness, there's a whole career, and I know I'm exactly where I need to be. That's just an example, but create a relatable example that tells a story, or maybe something, it could be sharp. You know, not that this happened, but an example could be, something that shocks people a little bit in a good way. But it's like, for example, this did not happen, disclaimer, did not happen. But if I said something along the lines like, who knew that an airplane flight would change my life? When I stepped out on the wing of the plane in the Hudson River after the captain safety landed, I really realized that this industry was something that I really wanted to be involved in as far as the aviation industry, because it really shows how teamwork can come together, blah, blah, blah. So you could take a shocking incident and then pivot it and tell your story that way. Like I said, that was not something that happened to me, but it could be something that it was shocking, or something that really had a fundamental shift in your mindset that is compelling, and that's what people will remember. And it's like, wow, I had no idea. That's pretty amazing. So, and then write to your audience. And that's the best way to communicate that chemistry. So again, you have the 2,000 characters. And then at the very end, you should create a call to action. And if you don't feel comfortable publishing your phone number on here, a lot of people, you don't, I get that. You can include your email address. Now, if you have an email address that you don't want out there, maybe you need to create a scratch kind of like job search email address that is, it's kind of like, you're not going to use it for anything else but job searches. And it may get crawled by bots. That's true. It happens a lot. But I will tell you the biggest pet peeves of recruiters, and probably your clients, prospective clients too, is like, well, how do I get a hold of you? Maybe they don't want to do a message on LinkedIn. Maybe they want to pick up the phone. There's certainly a lot of people that prefer a phone call. And so give them, whoever, think about your audience, what are you wanting them to do with that call to action, and then give them a means to follow up on that. So that's where you might want to include, sorry, there's a bug flying around in here. That's where you want to have some kind of call to action and the information you can provide. And again, keep in mind, you don't have to give your personal email address. It could be just sort of like a temporary one that's more for job search or work related or whatever. When we go into featured, and this is kind of cool, I want to show you this section. So featured can be articles that you've written or any presentations where you've spoken, if there's some kind of information, and chances are your chapter there has a newsletter or news magazine or something like that. They are always starved for content. So why not write an article? What happens is then it gets posted online, and now you have a link that you can include. And then that's when you want to have the featured, or it could be quoted or whatever it is. So you're building sort of your own like cloud of keywords through organically including all of these content areas. And if you're actually sharing your knowledge, that also establishes your subject matter expertise. Now you can move these things around. Gotta get in here to edit, sorry. So if I decided I wanted to move this one up, then I can just kind of switch it around. So you can switch them up if you like in terms of what you've listed there. So you can include as many or as few as you'd like. But if you want some to pop out more than others, that's fine. But you can show, it shows a whole section here of all the things that you could write about or be featured or something like that. So that's kind of like your grand central station of your featured, is anywhere you might have a digital online presence that you might want to include on your LinkedIn profile, just so that, it adds a little bit more legitimacy, I can't even say it, legitimacy, as well as credibility, because you are sharing your subject matter knowledge. So then I want to talk about your experience. So, actually, hold on just a second. I got some more I got to talk about. So if I go back out, let me just go to home. There's kind of different posts.
Don, while you're up there, can you briefly at some point show how to turn off broadcasts again? I have a couple people looking for that.
You could just Google it. Sorry, it will take me too long to toggle over there. So if you Google turn off broadcast notifications in LinkedIn, you'll get there.
Okay, great. Also, this will be posted on the chapter website, and you can watch that section again if you'd like.
Okay. So when we talk about, I said that this is not Facebook, but you can share content like you do on Facebook, but you really want to curate this to be in the professional realm. And remember, I just said that you want to wrap yourself up in relevant keywords. So be it in the event or exhibition planning side of things, or operations or sales or whatever it is, you can write your own post and share content. You can share photos, video, events. But then there's also a whole nother section called write an article. So that this post is like the quick, short thing. And that's like the Facebook post. Now, if you go here to write article, you can actually write essentially like a blog post, which is more of a long form thing. So the more you include information about, maybe a case study of something that you did that demonstrates how you work through a client scenario. Obviously, you want to protect the names of the not so innocent, but it's a great way to kind of get this published, and it's also organically a way to feed content and keywords back towards you. So you can publish, you could also make a newsletter, you can add images, and it's really kind of cool. And I will tell you, sometimes if you crank out enough legitimate content, you can actually get pulled into the LinkedIn polls or their news feed that's curated by editors. And I had one and there's no magic formula, as we all know, there's no viral formula, but I wrote one about how you're in your interview, what you wear determines your destiny. And it got like 111,000 hits. It was crazy views and lots of comments and things like that. But so that organically helped feed people back to my profile, and it also established my subject matter expertise. So you can kind of see how what we're trying to do is we're trying to wrap you up in this giant blanket, a nice, cozy, fluffy, cuddly blanket of keywords that are relevant about what you do. So then let me go back to my profile here. So now that we've talked a little bit about the posts, you have your activity. So you can share stories, you can share videos, you can write your own post, you can write your own blog post. So, you basically want to have the lights are on and somebody's home. You don't want to just build your profile and assume that people will show up. It doesn't work that way. So you got to think of LinkedIn as an active growing garden that you need to nurture. And sometimes you actually have to prune people out that are not being productive, or if they're being harmful or disruptive, that's okay to get rid of them. That's okay too. So then when we go into your work experience, what's going to be really important here is if you are not working, but you are volunteering, you can include work experience, but then say your title might be volunteer, exhibition manager, or volunteer fundraiser, or something like that. So you can count non-paid work experience under your experience. It's not saying work experience or paid experience. You can include everything in here, especially if you're undergoing a gap in your work history. You also want to make sure that your intro for each employer is to include a quick overview about the job. What I like to challenge my clients with is to talk a little bit about what did you like about the job? What was your biggest takeaway? What was the thing that you really got out of it that had a huge impact on your career? Now, I realize that there are some jobs out there. There's actually more than we probably want to admit, that there's Bosszilla, Bosszilla, they're crazy. So Bosszilla, it can make your life absolutely living, HE double matchsticks there. So you may hate that job and it may have made you sick going in every day, but the more you can kind of just say, okay, I came away with some things here. Let's try to find the positive in here. And that's how you choose to narrate your background. Then you're moving on and you're going to be much more effective in your job search and also talking about those experiences. But you want to also make sure once you have that, after you have that sort of overview here, you want to also give your top contributions and think in terms of like, how did you move the needle? How did you make a difference? How did you make it better? What problems did you solve? And quantify everything. I mean, we talk in terms of like strategic meetings management, and when we talk about post-event recaps, how did you perform against what you were being measured upon? You want to include those numbers. Obviously, I'm a private business. I'm not going to put my numbers on here. I'm a business owner, but for you, if you're trying to show results, and this is directly applicable if you're not looking for a job, because someone may want to say, well, what did you do for your previous clients or your other projects that you've worked on? So I can make a guess at how you might be able to help me. So numbers are great. And resume writers, we like to use a formula called challenge, action, result. And every bullet should be a challenge, action, result. It should start off, what was the challenge, or what were you being asked to do? What was the problem or the issue? Then talk about what action did you take? And then the result is the quantifiable metric that shows how you made a difference. So remember what I said earlier, you need to be able to show you're a profit center. You don't want to just say, I did XYZ. You need to say, well, I did a good job instead of a bad job, and here's why, and here's the numbers to back it up. And so that's the kind of thing that sets you apart for both clients and potential employers. You need to be able to show you're that profit center, you're the innovator, you're the one who's going to help evolve the company, or whatever it is, take it to the next level, improve customer service, improve customer experiences, and that kind of thing. So you need to do that for every employment that you've had. And so one thing I was going to say, you don't want to go back. Remember, I talked about age issues. So I included going all the way back to 1997. I'm an old lady. I get it. No problem. But you know what? I'm a business owner. I'm not looking for a job. So I can leave it on here. But for anybody else, I would say if you're looking to work for somebody else, you can maybe think about not going back further than 10 to 15 years. Okay. You kind of want to contain it. And if in all likelihood too, employers, what they care most about is what have you done the most recently, because it's a better representation of what you're capable of doing in this moment versus what you did 20 years ago. I hope everyone's evolved from where they were 20 years ago. We've grown, we've learned things and that kind of thing. Sorry, this bug is really getting me. So go through and maybe curate the section, and I've had to drop stuff off, but I decided I'm going to leave that in there because that was for me important, but that's my luxury of being a business owner. So then when we go into education, there's kind of 3 different components of education that you can include. Your school, if you have college or if you've got a degree at college or university or whatever, that's great. Now, if you did not complete it, you can put into here, like if you took a class, you started a program, you could always say program coursework in whatever it was. And that way you're not claiming that you have that degree, but you're saying, I did take the time and the effort to invest in myself. So, and also financially. So the more that you can think about, showing any kind of professional development in terms of any college or university classes or whatever, that's great. Employers like that. Do not put what year you graduated on there. But then we also have a secondary piece, and there's going to be a third piece too. So then we have everything else that's like our certification. So obviously I'm a CMP, LiveView or CEMs, that kind of thing. And you can include information about that. And then, any certifications as a part of education. And then I'm going to scroll down here because then we have, hold on, under accomplishments, there's another section called courses. And so if you're at a conference, like your group, if they have expo, maybe you went to that, you want to include that in here. Anything that you've gone to that's industry driven, that's like a biggie. It could be a conference, a workshop, a training, a webinar, even a corporate learning university. Those are all good things to include in here. And you want to drop them off as they get older. It used to be LinkedIn gave you a lot of space to talk about it, and then they decided it wasn't that important. So now they've kind of chunked it together. But it's really good that you add these courses in here to show progressive knowledge acquisition. You're not going to be sitting there gathering moss. So actively managing those courses. And if you think about it from a potential client standpoint too, they want to hire the person who's going to work on their project that's going to be the most up to speed with things, not someone who's way back in the 1990s. Okay, so think about that. So you can demonstrate continuous knowledge acquisition. So then I'm scrolling back up because that was the 3 parts. Unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't let me move them together. But so we talked about your formal schooling, or if you have a reference that you took some schooling, and even if you didn't complete the degree, don't include what year. You can include your certifications and then your educational sessions you've taken. And then we can get into volunteer experience. I really encourage everyone to make this robust. You can kind of pull off the website to add more information onto each volunteer stint. It just adds a little bit more information. And again, it reveals a little bit about you, but you want to be careful too that you're not volunteering or including volunteer information that might be protected class information. You don't want to go there. So make sure you're safe about that. Skills and endorsements. Let's talk about this. This is one of my favorite areas because I get a lot of questions about that. You get 55 skills and skill areas you can include on here. And you get to pin 3 at the top. So you get to decide which 3 skills to feature in your top skills. So you can move these puppies around. So let's just say I wanted to have more on writing. So I can move this up and it'll bump some, I actually have to bump something down. So maybe I want to take that and then I can move writing up here. So I can do there and then I have to tag it. So you can do that as much as you want. On LinkedIn, you may have 100+ endorsements for a particular skill set. It will only show 99+. So you can have, so once you fill up that 99+, maybe you want to shuffle your skill sets, so you kind of get more endorsements. And basically that's when you're actually on LinkedIn and it says, would you like to endorse Susie for exhibition planning? It's like, well, yes, I will. And you click out, that's perfect. A lot of people are like, well, you know, I'm just going to click out of that. A lot of people are like, well, that doesn't really mean so much, but let's look at this if we really break it down. So if we look on the back side of it, so it really says, okay, well, how many people have endorsed you for those skill sets? Remember what I said about search engine optimization? If you get a lot of hits on all these different things, then you're basically, a lot of people are saying you're really a big public speaker, you're talking a lot about interviews, you know what your stuff is. So if you are doing a pivot, this is really critical. You may need to curate the section and actually have maybe half your skill sets relevant to the meetings industry or event or exhibition industry or sales. And then the other half may need to be changed up and you may need to focus on operations or project management types of terms. So you got to think about that. You get up to 55. And so you may need to curate this and kind of trim it down. So if you're not getting a whole lot of action on some of the lesser used skill sets for maybe exhibition planning, maybe you might want to take those off and focus on adding some operational ones and then putting them in your top 3, just so you start getting endorsements. So this is, the more you get those likes, so to speak, of or endorsements of your skill sets, then the more organically you'll be ranked higher within LinkedIn. So that's something to be aware of. And it kind of, yeah.
We had a question on one. So when you're putting in all of your information, are there certain fonts or bullets, designs, anything like that that you should be using or not using to help with recruiter searches? Or is it just kind of automatic?
On LinkedIn, it's really limited. There's actually, if you Google LinkedIn friendly symbols, that's a good place to look, because I've used, if you could see on my, here I have little check marks. And maybe at the end, while we're talking, maybe I can, I'll go back to live camera and I'll go dig up that link and I'll share it with everybody. But it's a way to spice up your profile visually, but you're kind of limited because LinkedIn is kind of not a platform that allows for a lot of design options, but there are some things to add in there, like those check marks and things like that. That's mostly in the content area, okay? So then let's talk about the recommendations, which are different than the endorsements, okay? And so what you want to do with these endorsements, recommendations, I'm sorry, is that this is really powerful. I can't fake being somebody else, obviously. I can't log in as somebody else and write a profile or a recommendation. It's actually outstanding third-party evaluation of me and you. And so you want to be strategic about this. Anytime you have a client or coworker or boss or, you know, whatever, you have to figure out what your comfort level is. But if they say, hey, you've really done a great job, you got to be very assertive and say, hey, would you mind writing a LinkedIn recommendation on that, and give them the link? You just should do that. It works 24/7. And if you're also strategic about it, this is really critical, because you don't want to have 10 recommendations talking about the exact same thing. You want, if you're in sales, you may want to have one person talk about your customer service. Another person may talk about your problem solving. Another one might talk about how you go the extra mile. If you're an exhibition manager, maybe someone will talk about how calm you are. Another one might be how inventive you are. The other one's how you develop a really powerful attendee experiences. So you kind of see you need to do a robust spread of all the different skill sets that you have, and that will work 24/7 here. And really, again, if you can think of the people that can write these, I just be careful about doing I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing, because employers can spot those miles away. So just be careful about that, okay? But these are great ways for people to read about you, and it could be a client or a partner or sponsor or potential employer. And so it works. And, you know, I get questions about how many, obviously I've been doing this for a while. Not everybody wants to disclose their private job search and give me an endorsement, or a recommendation. So, I would say at least 10 recommendations is good to have on here. You don't need to go to, people have just done it for me. I just got to remember to keep doing that. So just make sure it's robust. And the more you can make your whole profile robust, that's great. And that includes including all of your honors and awards. We already talked about your courses, and then organizations to which you belong, any publications, and then any languages. That's a great thing to have too. So one other thing I want to mention, and this is really important, is that interests are really critical to include on here. And let me tell you why. So it could be that you're following thought leaders. That's good, because you want to demonstrate that you want to be, that you're on top of what's going on out there, and you're up to speed with the trends and that kind of thing. But it's also part of what I call the Kool-Aid formula. So let's just say I really want to go work at Nike. Okay. So if I go in here and then I go over here to companies, and I really want to work at Nike. So there's a whole thing where you can follow a company and it tells you so much information. Talk about a business information resource. And no, you do not need to have a paid membership to get into some of this information. Some of it you do, the premium. So if you actually like a company, and that is something they are checking now. And so, example, many years ago, I was a young pup. I applied for a job at AAA Oregon, Idaho, and it was going great. I was knocking out of the ballpark and all that stuff. And then at the very end, they said, "Can you show us your AAA card?" And I didn't have one. So didn't get the job. So they're looking for people who already have affinity with their company and starting to follow them on LinkedIn. And we're not talking about stalkery kind of stuff, but following companies on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. They like it when people are connected to their company already, and they do check that too. So that might be a good thing for you to do on here. And if you just look at the company side of things, there's a ton of information. It talks about about company, about the whole company, company size. They even have their culture, like life at Nike, what their corporate culture is about. Obviously, they list jobs, and then the people who are connected there, where they live, that kind of thing, how many employees, and then they have video content. Now, I will talk about the premium, and like I was saying, you do not need to have a premium account to access some of this information, but what I'm going to click on next is a premium area. And I managed not to have a premium account for probably about 8 years, my 13 years I've been working on my own. I did add premium because they have a whole Pro Finder service referral, a lead generation thing, and it's actually been pretty fruitful, so I keep that on there. But if you really want the deep dive on data on companies, so you could click on Insights. This is kind of behind the scenes. It talks about employee growth. So it could tell you, okay, they're growing. Nike's grown over 2 years, 32%. They're growing. They could talk about distribution headcount by function. So you could see, well, operations is up, sales is up in 6 months. And so you can see where the senior management hires have been, and then any senior management hires that have happened, and then alumni that have left the company, and then total job openings. Well, it looks like 3 months, that's not so good in operations, but look at that sales number. Now that could be, higher powered sales positions, or it could be, retail associates in like Nike Town or something like that. So it's not that clear, but it also tells you that they're pouring a lot of effort into community involvement with the community services and also their sales. So they're really trying to solidify their brand with the audiences. So that's really kind of cool. And then you could also look and see who's connected there. Now, this will bring me to kind of like another final exercise here. So based on, before I go into how to search information on LinkedIn, that will give you some tools. I want to do another breakout because I've talked a lot about keywords. So this is kind of a test. So are you ready to do another breakout here?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the breakout question is, what are some areas on your LinkedIn profile where you can add keywords? So what are some areas on your LinkedIn profile where you can add keywords? So if you want to break everybody out, let's do like 5 or 6 minutes and then come back, and then we'll do the final push as far as how to really dig deep into LinkedIn for the information you need.
Okay, I'm going to open up all the rooms. For those of you who joined in kind of late, I will assign you to a room as soon as I can realize who you are. It'll show me here in just a minute. So you will get in a room, just have a little patience.
Great. I hope you guys had a great conversation. I want to show you one last thing about LinkedIn that a lot of people don't know. And one thing that you should realize is that there's actually separately an entire different version of LinkedIn for recruiters. So it's called, surprisingly enough, LinkedIn for recruiters. And so it's really geared to try to source people. And I always like to give everybody the tools that they use so you can get the information that you need for applying for jobs or searching out clients or partners or whatever. So I'm going to type in this box up here some information, and I don't want you to look at the results. I just want you to look at the word. It's Boolean search terms. There's all kinds of information on the internet about this. I had no idea until I got into the HR kind of space that these exist, but you can pretty much get any information you want by using Boolean search terms or Boolean search operators. So I'll give you an example here. So, and this is where I always tell people there's no excuse why you cannot personalize a cover letter. And so if you use a Boolean search operator, let's just say I wanted to know the meeting planner at Nike. And so what you're doing is this is like the search parameter here. And then it's telling it has to be at Nike, and that's the other search. So now if we do this, let's see what happens here. Okay. So we've got different people connected here. So, and you can see what the connection, actually I'm going to do event planner because I know somebody here and I want to use that. Okay, so it will show you all the people. So there's 3,523 results. This can also include people who are no longer there too. But what you can do is start plugging in and figuring out how you can connect to them. So let's say you're applying for an event planner job at Nike. Okay, so I don't have any first degree connections, but Terry is a good friend of mine. So I could connect with Terry and say, hey, Terry, can you connect me to Ann and do a warm introduction on LinkedIn? Terry is like, sure, absolutely, no problem. So she sends me an introduction. This is the cool stuff where you're not having to rely on those in-mails that LinkedIn provides. If you're in the free account, I think you get 5. And if you're in the paid, I think you get 5 per month. I've never actually ever used them before, so I'm not quite sure in all those numbers, but I think that's pretty much it. So what I'm saying is that you need to start leveraging those connections, and maybe there's 2 other people that you need to ask. So these are all the other people that I'm connected with. So he's a sourcing manager at Salesforce, so he might know someone who's in a recruiter at Nike for that position, or know somebody because she knows somebody there. And then this other person is connected. I mean, so basically I've got 4 ins if I need them to that connection at Nike. So you can find pretty much any information you want using Boolean search terms. If you really want the full skinny on it, I don't want to, that's a whole session a lot of recruiters will do. I'm not going to take your time up with that. But if you really want to dig a little deeper, you can search. And there's all kinds of shorthand user guides out there about Boolean search terms. You could become like the super duper ninja who could just like slice through all the noise and get right to the name or the person that you're trying to reach. It could be a customer, it could be, a potential employer, hiring manager, that kind of thing. But Boolean search terms are like something that just opened my whole mind open. It's like I had no idea. But then using LinkedIn, that's where the spider webbing of all your connections really comes into play, because now you're able to use your connections in a good way. And I do want to emphasize that I said the word use, but we all know that true networking happens when you're a giver, not a asker. So you got to warm people up before you start asking for things like that young man who decided to hit me up for money to go on a vacation. So my point is that part of building a conversation with someone is starting a conversation, building meaningful relationships, sharing information, keeping them front of mind, and then eventually you become front of mind. And then when you need something, you've already built that relationship. That's where you can springboard into your ask, and that can kind of come later, but you don't want to lead with the ask. That's really critical. So in short, and I know we have some questions probably, but LinkedIn is this powerful engine really that works 24/7, and it's helping everyone really, you know, dig deep, find information, navigate through a lot of, you know, the clutter, as they say, and get right to the point if you know how to use it right. And it can also, on the flip side of things, attract people your way too, by organically having in-depth keywords that are kind of, like I said, you're wrapping yourself up in this giant blanket, and the more keywords are relevant to who you are and what you do, then that makes you more relevant in searches. And by the way, LinkedIn has its own indexing, but it also is indexable by Google as well. So you would be found in Google searches as well. So you cover a lot of different, kill a lot of birds with one stone, so to speak. So, so anyway, I wanted to open up for questions. If anybody has any, this is your time to ask. I want to make sure that I'm a helpful resource to you. And I'm going to get a drink of water because this wildfire smoke in Oregon is killing me right now. I mean, I got in the sun for 4 days, so.
I have a quick question, Dawn. Is there a way to search LinkedIn without the other person seeing you view their profile?
Yes, you can turn off, you can make yourself anonymous. Your profile's visibility can be anonymous.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. In other words, you want to stalk someone, Alex?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of boring around here, so might as well.
Yeah, well, sometimes you're trying to dig up some information. You just want to look at that person's profile, and you don't necessarily want to let the cat out of the bag. So you can go into stealth anonymous mode, and then it will just, you've probably seen this on your own profiles, like someone from the XYZ industry looked at your profile. That's what they're doing.
Okay.
That was a good question.
Oh, I just wanted to share, people in my breakout liked the fact that you can actually link to YouTube videos that are on your channel in your featured section on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's like any social media outlet, you can include that in there, which is great, because if you have that content, then it's a great way to add depth and robustness to your profile too. Absolutely. No more questions? You guys are so quiet.
Yeah, Dawn, I have another question. I know there's a lot of different things out there now saying buzzwords and ATS tracking and all these different tracking methods that recruiters use. Does that go into LinkedIn as well, or more towards the resume side of things?
Well, that's a very good point. Resumes are when there's kind of two functions. There's an opportunity to apply for jobs using your LinkedIn profile. So that's using LinkedIn scanning and keyword searching. That's independent of what you might have on a corporate website where you plug your information in, and they may have a system like Taleo. That's one of the biggest ones out there that they use, and that's what actively scans your resume too. So, and basically in either situation, there's what they're doing is they are taking the job description, and then they are setting a predetermined hit ratio that you have to hit a certain percentage of the keywords in that job. And if you don't hit that threshold of density, then you go in the garbage can. So you got to be careful about not keyword stuffing, because the systems and algorithms have figured that all out a long time ago, including trying to put white font on your resume with keywords in there. That does not work. You can get tossed just because of that. So be careful. Don't try to get smart.
But that's the way LinkedIn works as well, right? So
I have not seen the back end of LinkedIn when you apply on LinkedIn, but I'm assuming that you know, when they get, you know, you could probably see the stats of how many people apply for the same job on LinkedIn. There has to be some kind of efficiency software scanning program in there. I'm sure there is. I mean, like 100% sure.
One more quick question. If a recruiter at Nike wants a salesperson, but they will go into that recruiter side of things and they'll type in sales, or I don't know, sales manager or something like that, and then hits will pop up. Is that how it works?
Yeah, they have certain things that they're looking for, maybe, you know, a number of years of experience. So it would read your LinkedIn profile to see how many years you've been doing, held job titles that may have sales manager in it, and may also look for specific skill sets, because there's inside sales, outside sales, blah, blah, blah. So there's different ways that they can use as search parameters. It may be that they only want to work with people who have been employed with big companies like Nike. So they only want to talk to people who've been in sales with Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 50 companies. So there's a lot of different ways they can slice and dice that information. And believe me, when recruiters are craving the next best qualified person, I mean, they are looking, they are so frustrated because they have a lot of people that there's a lot of wheat to get down to the chaff, or, you know, so they're trying to get down to the meaty stuff. And so the more you match them, but then part of it's you understanding what those opportunities are. If you know about them ahead of time, then you might want to do a couple little tweaks on your profile so you have as many keywords relevant to that particular job search too, just so that you are popping up.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Dawn, I have a question as it relates to somebody that's, you know, employed, but looking for sales, you know, and so it's a bunch of questions. Number one, it ties to Alex's question on if you're like connected to a friend who's a competitor of yours, and you want to research, maybe there's like 10 different meeting planners at XYZ company. You want to, you know, see who's the right meeting planner. A lot of times you get that from going into your, you know, like colleagues. It might be a competitor. It may be just, you know, you're somebody at your DMO, and you see that if they're connected to XYZ people, those are the people that you probably are the decision makers, the meeting planners that you want to get to know. And then as I'm surfing, is it the premium that you have to have so that they don't know that you're checking them out and checking
No, it's in there. You can just make your profile anonymous. I think you don't have to have the premium to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another thing you can do too is sometimes you don't even have to click on those, you know, a lot of times they'll say people also viewed this profile. That can also be indicative of like the connections there. Have you seen that before? On the right-hand side, it says, here's this one profile, but people also view da 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 da. So like, okay, well, that's a good indicator that there's a connection there.
Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have more questions? I think you said you had several.
Well, those were all tied together, kind of. Just wanted to. I wanted to know about the ghosting because I thought for some reason that it was the premium one, but that's good to know that it isn't. Because I don't, you know, sometimes you just don't want people to know that you're looking at them. There's other times that you may, like if you're an employer and you're looking at people, you may want them to know that you're looking at their LinkedIn profile.
Yep. So
Yeah,
I just need to
along
find.
the same lines, if someone has a premium account, then does that allow them to see who's looking at them, even if that person wanted to be private?
If you are on private mode or anonymous mode, they can't find out who you are.
So even if the other person pays to be premium?
No.
Okay.
I would imagine there'd be a lot of upset people out there.
Hi, Dawn. This is Lori Jenks, and thank you for this. This is great stuff. And my question is, I've heard different perspectives on if you should write a note when you try to connect with somebody. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I talked a little bit about that. Thank you. That's a good question. And you should always personalize your invitation to someone versus going with the standard default greeting, because it's an opportunity to build a relationship with someone. And if you're just requesting to connect, you've missed an opportunity to truly build a meaningful connection. So absolutely personalize it.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was a good question, Lori, because
Yeah.
that's how I saw, when I put in the chat earlier about some of these people that are constantly reaching out to connect on LinkedIn that are some of them are recruiters, some of them are, financial advisors, some of them are, hey, why don't you come and work for an insurance company now that we see that you're unemployed? They all seem to have that same message. So that's a great question. And that's one way that, I delete.
Great. Thank you.
And I saw a question here. Erica wanted to know, can anyone use Boolean or just recruiters? Anybody can. You can use it in LinkedIn. You can also use it on Google too. It's a cool little handy dandy spy kit.
It's great for your email search as well. If you,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I use it all the time to find something that I stuffed somewhere. I have no idea where it is. So.
And Dawn, another thing that was brought up between you and Alex I thought was really interesting is, if you've had your resume done years ago, like maybe even just 3 years ago or 4 years ago, it almost seems with all the analytics nowadays and how recruiters have platforms that can look through all those analytics on words in your resume as well as what's on your LinkedIn differently. You almost have to have an expert, a true expert to help you with it again, it seems like.
Well, I kind of went through it today and had all the different sectors, and it looks like you guys are recording it. So I would replay that because you can kind of look at, one thing about LinkedIn is a big bite to chew. And if you aren't using it all the time, it can feel a little overwhelming, but my advice is to do a little bit at a time. But the more that you can fill one area out, get it robust, then maybe step away and then come back in and do another area. The more you make it robust, it's going to be able to be a really great tool for you to market yourself and be found organically.
I was feverishly writing notes. For as much as I thought I knew about LinkedIn, I'm so glad we're recording this.
Yeah. No other questions? Crickets?
Anybody else have a question? Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, there's Stephanie.
I know, late. Sorry. If there's one thing that you would like everyone to take back with them out of this entire session, what would that be?
Don't neglect your profile. I can't even tell you. And it's, if you got to think of it, it is an extension of yourself. And even if you're not looking for work, it looks bad. It's pretty apparent that, you're not engaging on LinkedIn. But then all of a sudden, if you start to look for a job and there's all of a sudden all this frequent burst of activity, it's like that starts spiking. It's like, okay, danger sign, going to look for another job. If you don't neglect your profile and you're constantly creating, you may need to do the system work and take it down and then work on it and bring it back up. And so you send one note out to your network. But then the whole point is to maintain a certain amount of background chatter so that it's not going to be this onerous assignment to try to update the whole thing. You're doing it constantly. And that's that garden analogy I was using. You need to constantly be watering your garden and you need to be pruning stuff. And it won't grow unless you nurture it. That's my point. So, and if you're ignoring it and all of a sudden you're dumping gallons of water on it, it's going to be pretty clear something's going on.
And Alana has a good point there. Make sure you have a decent photo.
Yes.
Or a great photo, as she put it, because
Yes.
some of those LinkedIn photos, I'm not sure what they're thinking.
Yeah, I've seen a lot.
As
Some
long
of
as
the
It's not a dating website. Let me just say that.
yeah,
as long as it's true too, and you don't look like you're 14 years old. Although
Yeah.
I'd like to look like I was 14.
I love some of the email addresses people have too. That's like, business appropriate email address.
Yeah.
Hot Mama 27 just is probably not what you want to use to put out on
No.
LinkedIn. I'm just saying.
Diesel truck lover, no. Lawrence Belt fan 45, no. Yeah, no.
Yeah, that'll age you instantly.
That's another really great point that a lot of people don't really realize that, like when I've looked for employees, I kind of ghost them. I'll look on Facebook too.
Yep.
And even though Facebook is not as professional. If I see somebody that's ditching their last employer and saying things about their last employer on Facebook, I'm probably not going to hire that person.
Nope. Yep, that's true. Once it goes on Facebook, it stays on Facebook. Sorry, Erica, because I know you're in Vegas. Sorry.
No, it's true.
Just Erica, be careful though, because some things you're not allowed to do when you're researching potential employees. So never actually say it to the person. This is why you didn't get the job. Just
Oh yeah, true
our
that.
secret. Our
Nobody
secret.
knows who I'm talking about right now.
I didn't employ you because you're stupid. Yeah, can't say that. Just don't do that.
Well, I want to say thank you, everybody. This has been great. And hopefully you had some good meaty stuff and takeaways and made you think a little bit more about your profile and really watering that garden. And I just appreciate this opportunity. So good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. And again, thank you to our sponsors and thank you for everybody who stayed on. We're down to 20. We had 38 at one point. This will be posted again. Really appreciate everybody's participation. Hopefully the breakout rooms worked well for everybody. And we will have another educational session next month, hopefully, and we will have a hospitality one. So just keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on social media, and thank you everyone for coming. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Bye.
Bye.